Okay.
Well, hello, good afternoon, students. I am very happy to see each one of you guys today and to teach you a little bit about the Mayan civilization to the Zapatistas. So let's get started. I want to actually recap a little bit about the syllabus that I emailed you guys and mention that my class is based on the what's it called, the book review, the weekly response, the final, and the midterm, and of course attendance. I would want you guys to be here I can teach you and you guys can teach me to learn a lot about the Mayan civilization. So I'm going to start with a question, and I want to know what you guys know about the Mayan culture and the religion. It doesn't have to be right, because I know that many of us don't know a little about the Mayans. So can anyone answer that for me? Okay, then.
I don't know what they did it for, but they did a lot of human sacrifice.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm actually going to talk about human sacrifice, so you guys will learn a little bit about them. Okay. So I'm going to start with the Mayan religion, and they basically were polytheistic, which in other words, it was now in modern day Hinduism. They believed in many gods, and they worship more than 165 gods. For example, they had a god for the sun, the moon, and the maize, which was food. And the gods were human-like. They were born again. They were born, they grew up, and died. And what they did was, the gods would do other human-like activities that was considered acceptable behavior. So what this means is that they would do work in the plantation, go into wars, and do business. And also many of the rites and religion events were held at specific time of the year, which they believe in 3 planes of existence. And the 3 planes of existence is the earth, which we live in, the heavens above, and the underground, which is below. They each had a different god, and the underground god, well, basically was not a good god, but they believed in a god for each of the 3 planes of existence. And for that, the religion of the Mayans, that they believed that to worship their gods, they had to do human sacrifice. So it was related to that, and I'm going to show you a little bit of information about the human sacrifice. They were first introduced by the Toltecs, which we learned back in the like 2 weeks ago about the Toltecs when they invaded the Mayans. They are nomadic indigenous people that were basically, they were, I think around 968, that's when they attacked the Mayans, but that's who presented the human sacrifice to them. And Jimmy, can you please read to me the meaning of human sacrifice to the Mayans?
Meaning of human sacrifice. To the Mayan, death and sacrifice were spiritually linked to the concept of creation and rebirth. It often marked the beginning of a new era.
Right, thank you. So what he basically read was that the new era was like the new beginning of a king, or the new beginning of a calendar year. And the sacrifice were often carried out by priests or nobles. As you can see here, that it may be a priest or a king, because especially it was driven by them, but they would pick noble people they would just choose them randomly, or they would, either the nobles would want to sacrifice themselves because they would want to give their all to the gods. And what they would do is they would place them, that we see right here, they would place them in like a table, and they would cut open their chest, take out their heart, and put it up in the sky, and that's how the gods would get fed, by their blood. So they would do it on and on and on, until the god would finally mean that he was already fed by the blood. So what they would do after that, they would throw him down the pyramid, and it would land on the floor, and basically they would take him to a cenote. A cenote is you can think about it as like a pool, and you can there's some cenotes in the southern of Mexico that you can swim on them, but this one that's in Chichen Itza, which is Yucatan, you can't swim on it because many archaeologists have found many bodies in them, so you can't. It's really nasty. It's like really green and everything. That's what they did. And they actually built 2 types of pyramids, which one of them was basically symbolized to the human sacrifice. They would be like the pyramids from the Egyptians, which was really tall, and in the top it was to be flat, and it was basically for the human sacrifice. So they believed a lot in human sacrifice. Do you guys have any questions for the religion or human sacrifice? Yeah.
Does the paintings on the bodies signify, or is there a meaning behind it? Do you know?
I just know that they would paint themselves just because like it was a symbolic to their gods or anything. This is actually taken from, I don't know if you guys seen the movie.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, if you've seen it, it's kind of like what they would do. So, yeah. And next up, what is, I don't know if you guys heard of it, but it's the ball game. They were actually, the ball game was another symbolism of human sacrifice to them. They would actually play with their, they would use their hips and their elbows to actually make it to the hole that is here. And I don't know, but if you guys, the Mayans were really short people, so people don't really think it was a ball game because they don't know how, they don't understand how, I mean, short people can make it all the way over here, but they would just make, they would use their hips and their elbows to make it in there. And it is known to be that there's 556 ball courts around the peninsula of the Mayan Empire, and there's 3 different kinds of ball games. Like there's 3 different kinds of ball game courts, which one of them is just like a practice field. The second one is like a symbolized thing of the ball game, which is just like if you want to go for events or anything. And the third one was basically where they would actually play with fear and everything. They would actually, I've mentioned that the game was a religious, symbolic, and spiritual meaning. They would use their heads when the loser would win, and they would cut them, and they would actually play with their heads most of the time. But it is known to that many of the losing team would get killed because, I mean, the winning team won, but there was also times that the winning team would get killed because it was something symbolic to them that they have won to the gods and something that they really believed in, which many people don't think it's true, but there is famous pictures on the temples in Chichen Itza that have been drawn of like the king throwing up the head of the loser team, so that's why they think that they have the winning team, the loser team with that. And what we know of the Mayans astronomy is that they were one of the smartest people, and the Mayan believe that the earth is at the center of all celestial bodies, and that the sun and the moon and stars moved around. So I have a picture that the priests who were were smart, they would head inside, and inside there's a hole in the middle that would that's where they would see the stars and the sun and Venus and everything. So that's where they would get everything from, like when the rainfall would come or different type of climate. And also the Mayans were able to trace the heavenly movements by using rudimentary tools, which that means that they really didn't have what we have today, which is technology. And that's how this is actually in Chichen Itza. It's the observatory to monitor the movements. You can't actually climb because they stopped, because it's one of like the 7 wonders, so they want to keep it there. And I actually learned that many of them that were in here would also get human sacrifice after they would know the movement of the moon and the stars, and that's when, from this they got the calendar. So I'm gonna move into the calendar is a modern It's used as in modern communities. For example, it's used in Guatemala, Veracruz, Oaxaca, and Chiapas, which is the southern part of Mexico. And that's where basically the Mayan Empire started. So they still use it, and they actually still have a certain date where they celebrate the Mayan calendar because it's something symbolic, and as we know, it was like they predicted that the world was going to come to an end, so they really admire that. People in modern days believe that they have mystical powers, and it's just different to know that they worship someone that, I mean, has already been dead. But I try to actually learn the Mayan calendar. It's really difficult to learn it, but I put it in a simple way for you guys can understand it. So the Mayan is used in 3 different calendars, which the first one is the sacred calendar, which is Tolkien. I can't say, it's really different, but it's called a Tolkien. It's basically, it lasts 260 days, and then it starts all over again. It's just like our calendar, which is 365 days, and then it refreshes again on December 31st. The second one is a secular calendar, also known as a Hab, and that calendar lasts 365 days. It is a calendar that it's like significant to like it predicts the winter, the fall, the summer, the spring. And this one is when this calendar predicts like the time of the year of like different events. So we have 2 different kinds of calendars. And the long count calendar, which is the one that we have. And that's the reason why many people are very into that calendar, because they predicted until a certain day, certain time, the world was going to come to an end. And it got everything right. It's exactly our calendar, like it's 365 days. And that's the reason why many of like the people think the world was going to come to an end. So do you guys have any questions about the calendar or the ball game or anything?
Did they throw heads to the thing instead of a ball game?
Yeah, well, they would use their hips and their elbows, so they would make the head.
To cut off somebody's head?
No, they couldn't use their hands. So they would use their hips and their elbows to play the game, and they would make it inside of them. Actually, the ball was very, very heavy, so they don't actually understand how the ball game works, because it's like they're short people, and if you ever get to go there, it's really high. It's
I
like,
think Merrick's confused, like, he thought people use like cut off heads as the ball, so
oh, they do that. They sometimes do that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I want to end my presentation with a picture of me. Interesting that. This is a pyramid that's very famous. It's actually one of the 7 wonders. And if you ever get the chance to visit, it's really, really cool. Because, for example, here, there's, in the middle of like a certain time of the day, there's a resemblance of a snake, and you can see it. And that's what they're famous for. And also, when you stepped, if you were to step where I'm right here standing, and if you were to go on the other side, you can actually clap and hear the echo. So it's actually really kind of creepy in a way, but that's where, for example, what I was mentioning, that they would do the human sacrifice here, and they would roll them down and take them to their destination of the cenote. And yeah, I actually wanted to try to take a picture of many of the descendants of the Mayans, but they wouldn't let me because they think that I'm taking their souls away when I was taking the pictures. So many of them would run away. I was like running back of them and just like trying to take a picture, but that's what they told me. One of my cousin that lives over there, she told me that they don't like that. So I've been here twice, and it's such a beautiful thing to look at that I don't know how they made them. So many people think aliens did, or have a lot of ideas, but it's amazing to know that they made that with no tools or anything. They just made it out of hand. So I hope you guys like my presentation.